Seize that man!
Stop! Outlaw!
Seize that man!
Hey ho, nobody home. No meat, nor drink, nor money have I none. Yet I will be very merry, merry, hey ho. Nobody home. No meat, nor drink, nor money have I none. Yet I will be very merry, merry, hey ho. Nobody home. No meat, nor drink, nor money have I none. Yet I will be very merry, merry. Yet I will be very merry, merry. Yet I will be very merry, merry. Oh.
Welcome, citizens, to our humble whirlwind theatrical of crime in the Middle Ages. The Conisbrough Rolls date from 1265 to 1935 and have been described as nationally significant by the National Archive. This incredibly important survival from Doncaster's medieval past records the decisions and actions of the manorial court of Conisbrough and the soak of Conisbrough.
So,
Area of Conisbrough. The court covered 15 townships in Doncaster, 12 in Rotherham and 1 in Barnsley, and stretched from Thorn and Hatfield in the east to Hart Hill on the southern border of Yorkshire.
Now, when you think about medieval England, your first thoughts may go to Robin Hood and his friendly merry band of robbers. Living by the campfire in the forest, stealing from the rich and giving to the poor. Or of evil sheriffs, living in castles and taxing the villagers. And of course some of this is true, because as well as law and order, some of the fines that were imposed did line the pockets of the king and the lord of the manor.
Cha-ching!
But what these records show is conflict and violence between ordinary people, and how when relationships deteriorated between villages and how they were punished. And you may find along the ways that some things haven't changed that much after all.
now, in the 15th century, it was the law, as well as the responsibility of everyone, that if you saw a crime, not only to report it, oh no, you had to yell out, you had to raise a hue and cry. So sometimes it's necessary for us to practice this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, stop, outlaw, and you are going to respond by shouting, seize that man. Okay, let's give it a go. Are you ready? Stop, outlaw!
Seize that man!
Stop, outlaw!
Seize that man!
Stop, outlaw!
Seize that man!
Fantastic, thank you very much. Now listen very carefully, because at some point during this, you may be required to raise the hue and cry.
The judge. And now, good citizens, I beg your attention as we unfold to you the story of the alewives.
Or as we would say today, sex discrimination.
It is hereby accused that the wife of John Bly, the wife of Thomas Dyche, and the wife of Richard Smith did hereby brew ale, and sold it against the assize. Wherefore each is in mercy issued with an amendment
That's a fine.
of 3 pennies. They are so charged. How do you plead?
But I can't pay that. That's more than I earn in a month. And that is why I make the ale in the first place, in order to make a living, just like my mother did, or her mother before her, or her mother before her. Well, she used to carry it on her back and hawk in the street. Just like all the women and the villagers, we were very proud to be called Brewsters. But now there's shame in that word, and it has become brewers. Well, that's just not right.
I warn you, wife of John Bly, mind your tongue. It is against the law.
And who made it so? I brew it for my own consumption. But I can't drink the milk because that's for the cheese. I can't drink the water for fear of disease. And I can't drink the wine because I can't afford it. So that is why occasionally I sell it. Just like all the women and the wives and the young folk and the widows. But now, women's work has become men's work. And the brewster has become the brewer. And now, the men have formed the guilds because it is easier to brew with the hops. And it's easier to transport, and there's money in it. And so women have been barred from these guilds. And what is the justice in that?
You women appear before me and take up my time more than any other capacity in this court. Hold your tongues, or I will fine you further. Wife of John Bly, wife of Thomas Dyche, wife of Richard Smith, you are hereby found guilty as charged and issued with the amendment of 3 pennies.
Now that might not seem like very much to us, but this woman may only earn half a penny a day if she's lucky. So 3 pence is 6 days' worth of money for her. You might also be wondering why she's not referred to by name, or any of the other women for that matter. She's the wife of Thomas, or the wife of Richard, or the wife of Harold. Well, that's because in the Middle Ages, when a woman got married, she became the property of her husband, much like his ox or his chair. In the eyes of the law, technically they were one person. But this meant that sometimes husbands could be held responsible for the behaviour of their wives, or husbands could send their wives to court in their place.
Wife of John Arnott, stand. It is declared that you baked bread and sold it against the assize, fined 4 pennies. Sit. Wife of John Wyberg, wife of William Simpson, stand. More brewing of ale, fined 2 pennies. Sit.
Now, if we were just to rely on stories that we read or films that we see, we might think that women in the Middle Ages fall into 2 categories. They're either bawdy wenches in taverns.
Mine's a pint.
Or they're beautiful, innocent maidens, locked in towers, victims waiting to be rescued by knights in shining armour.
Help, help.
But of course, what the court rolls allow us to see is that ordinary women were just as likely to commit crime as men, and to be punished accordingly. Take, for instance, Joan, the wife of Hugh Wynesley, who, when her husband was assaulted by Thomas Benton, was so outraged she stormed into the common hall, slapped Thomas Benton across the face, and spoke malicious words to him.
You hedgeborn, you cumbermold, you mucksprout, you coxcomb, you mandrake.
Enough! Medieval swear words. Joan was fined 12 pennies. But more often than not, what we discover is that women committed crimes against other women.
Next.
Ambush, otherwise known as a fray.
Alice and Margaret, daughters of John Kirkley, on a certain day last year, lay by night in ambush for Agnes Whiteley and made a fray with her.
They had a fight in a public place.
And drew blood from the same Agnes Whiteley.
They made her nose bleed. Now this was obviously a premeditated attack. After all, they did ambush her. But more often than not, it was the result of an ongoing argument between women.
You hedge-born rom-yom,
You driggle-draggle.
how dare you call me a dribble-draggle, you doxy!
Oh,
And, it seems, they used everyday items as spontaneous weapons.
Give me that, come here,
word.
you!
Ooh.
Ow!
Ooh.
Ow!
Ooh.
Ow!
Ooh, women! Stop!
Give me that, give me that! Give me, come here, you! You pooterel! You, come here, come on! Come on!
Oh, give me that.
that you clean the watercourse or be fined 40 pennies. Sit.
Now, of course, in the medieval ages, there wasn't police forces, so the courts relied on the communities to detain anyone who had broken the law and make them appear at court. Or not. Debt. If you can't pay, well, take it away.
11th of July, in the year of our Lord 1453, John Dowse complains of John Milner, the elder from Hart Hill, in a plea of debt in 2 actions, who has been summoned, but has not come. Wherefore, he has been ordered to attach himself to the next court on the 8th of August in the year of our Lord 1453.
So, John Milner has taken money from John Dowse, and so he's been ordered to appear at court, but he hasn't come. So now he has to appear at court in August, but a month later...
8th of August in the year of our Lord 1453, John Dowse complains of John Milner, the elder of Hart Hill, in a plea of debt in 2 actions.
But he hasn't come.
He has therefore been ordered to seize the property of the said John Milner to enforce his appearance, and 1 ox, price 40 pennies, has been so seized.
So they've taken his ox, and he can't work the land and pay off the debt.
Wherefore he is now in mercy, and it has been ordered to seize all further property of the said John Milner to compel him to attend the next court on the 22nd of August in the year of our Lord 1453.
Oops, he hasn't come. So now they're going to take everything that he has.
Next, Robert Birchdale. Yes, you, stand. John Spooner. It has been presented that you have cut down and carried away the Lord's wood. Fined 4 pennies. Sit. Next.
And now, good citizens, the strange story of the hole, or the obstruction of the King's Highway.
It has been ordered of John Maunsell that he fill in a certain pit that he has dug in the middle of the highway, there for the digging of marl.
That's white clay.
By the feast of the Nativity of St. John the Baptist next, or face a fine of 6 shillings and 8 pennies. John Maunsell, may I inquire why you have chosen to dig your pit in the middle of the highway and not in a more suitable and convenient spot?
The marl was of good quality, and I have broken no law.
But it was in the middle of the King's Highway, and has therefore prevented the free passage of the public.
I needed the marl for the fertilization of my soil, and according to the ancient rights enshrined in the Charter of the Forest, I have the right to carry out small-scale industries such as charcoal burning, clog and spindle making, and most importantly, the digging of clay pits.
Yes, but John Maunsell, you are not before me for the small industry of digging marl, but rather for the great hole you have left behind, some 15 feet by 12 feet across, and 4 feet deep. As you yourself have said, these pits are usually dug in the forest, but for some reason you have chosen to dig yours in the middle of the King's Highway. This pit has now filled with water, and has taken on the appearance of a great bowl-shaped pond. In fact, it may soon be required that we build a bridge in order for the public to gain access across it. No, John Maunsell, you will fill in this pit before the feast of the Nativity of St. John the Baptist next, or face a fine of 6 shillings and 8 pennies. Next!
6 shillings and 8 pennies. That's £214 and 35 pence today.
How much?
£214 and 35 pence. You only earn £2 a year.
Next.
Homelessness.
John Smith, stand! And this is your wife, I I presume, Agnes Smith. It is presented that you are vagabonds and do not have the means with which to support yourselves. It is also presented that you are robbers of small items, hens, eggs, loaves, and the like. Fined, 4 pennies.
But that's not true. We travel from village to village to find work. We want to live and work in peace.
This village does not want the burden of supporting 2 more homeless vagabonds. You are not welcome here. Move on.
Move on where?
You heard the judge. Move on.
Where?
I don't care, as long as we don't have the responsibility of looking after you. Go back from whence you came.
Clear off.
Some things never change.
Now we have reached the date of 22nd of August in the year of our Lord, 1453. John Dowse complains of John Milner the Elder in a plea of debt in 2 actions. John Milner? John Milner?
He still hasn't come.
And the court now understands that the defendant has failed to appear in court 3 times. It is therefore the court's decree that the defendant,
That's John Milner.
be declared a civil outlaw.
Now, this is very serious for John Milner. It's not like Robin Hood and his merry men. This means now that John Milner can be attacked anywhere, anytime, any place by anybody, and he has no protection at all. He is literally out with the protection of the law.
And now, good citizens, invasion of privacy. Or today, stealing your data. Or hacking your mobile phone. Oi!
John Rexeth, stand. The court now understands that you are an activigant
A night wanderer.
and an eavesdropper,
Snooper.
and that you have been found listening at night and snooping into the secrets of your neighbours. Fined 2 pennies. Sit.
And finally, street fighting was really common in the Middle Ages, and yes, you've guessed it, usually involving alcohol.
Brawling.
Or as we would call it today, disturbance of the peace. It is presented before the court that Giles Thompson, on a certain day in a certain place this year, made a fray with Thomas Broke against the peace. Wherefore, Giles Thompson is at mercy.
Before the court.
But it is also presented that at the same time, at the same place, the said and aforementioned Thomas Broke made a fray with Giles Thompson against the peace and drew blood from him. Wherefore, Thomas Broke is at mercy.
Before the court.
I pray you, which one of you threw the first blow?
He did. You hit me first.
You hit me first.
Liar.
Who are you calling a liar?
You.
Come over here and say that.
You come over here.
I'll punch your face.
Not if I punch you first.
Stop! You wouldn't believe it, but these are usually the best of friends when they've not been drinking.
I love you.
Not as much as I love you. Gives a kiss. Now, it's important to remember that from this distance, some of these things may appear quite funny.
But you have to remember that people then, they carried weapons and knives.
Yeah, a small argument could turn into tragedy. Death was always close at hand in the Middle Ages.
In 1340, you were 110 times more likely to be killed in one way or another.
People struggled to find food. Famine was always a constant threat.
The plague was one of the biggest killers of the Middle Ages.
Travelling was fraught with danger. They faced freezing to death or being robbed or killed by strangers.
Women died in childbirth, and if the baby did survive, they had a 30–40% chance of surviving infancy.
Being the victim of just one small robbery could push your family into starvation.
There was no NHS, and a simple injury could result in loss of livelihood, infection, or death. The Middle Ages was a time that saw the beginnings of things like English law and justice and government that we share today, and that is where it has its roots.
Hang on a minute. Isn't that John Milner over there? Stop, Outlaw!
Caesar, man!
Stop!